Hey, Life Fixers. Hope you're having an awesome day. Are you ready to better understand yourself, your partner, and your marriage? Today we got a really interesting guest who's been married not once, not twice, not three times, or four or five or six, but seven times. Yep. There's been a lot of abuse, a lot of violence, and not such healthy relationships. But husband number seven, the one she's currently married to, she's been married to for 17 years. 17, sorry, 19 years. Well, thank you so much, Joanne, for being here. I am super excited to be speaking with you. And before we get to like your previous relationships, I want to start with, how did you meet your current husband?
Well, to start off with, he's in prison and he's been there for almost 40 years. And we met through a former roommate of mine whose husband was also in prison. And she came home one day and said, "Hey, I met this really nice guy. He's a friend of my husband's, and he was visiting his mom. He's really smart." And, the bells went off because I won't say that, well, a lot of my smart intellectual was a big turn on for me. So I would say probably most of my husbands were not highly intellectual, and so that was good. And we started writing. We wrote for a couple of months, and then I met him in person, and we courted for 5 years, and then got married at the prison. And we've been married for over 19 years.
So how often do you actually get to see him?
Well, before COVID, I would see him once a week, and in the first few years, because my office was right near the prison and visiting was 4 days a week, I saw him 4 days a week. And then he got moved like from Northern California to Southern California. So it was like once a month. So it just kind of depends on where he's at. But right now he's back in Northern California. So I was seeing him every week. And since COVID, I've had maybe 2 video visits and 2 in-person visits. And one of them was for like an hour. And one of them was a 2-day visit, which we usually get, every few months, except when COVID was happening and there's restrictions there, they weren't allowing the family visits. So I've seen him basically twice in 18 months.
So why is that into your relationship? I mean, your whole relationship was built very differently. The fact that it was in prison, it's like your prison. And how long is he there for?
Technically, if the state has their way, he's going to be there till he drops dead. So he has a life without parole sentence.
Okay, so
I shouldn't be laughing. It's not funny, but
it's a coping mechanism to get through it.
It is. Thank you. It is a coping mechanism. So, and so for 15, 16 years, all we had were in-person visits, sitting at a table in a room with a bunch of other people, like, hundreds of people, or at least 100 other people. So for 15, 16 years, all we could do was talk, eat, and hold hands, and a hug and a brief kiss at the beginning and the end of the the visit. So that's what our whole relationship on. And I would say communication, we have talked nonstop for many years. And we have discovered that, I think at one point he was saying that he talked to his friends who are free and are married, and they're going, they were remarking, apparently it's like, we're lucky if we see each other once a week or get to go out once a month or, spend an hour a week talking, because most couples are very busy, whether or not they have children, but it's like they're very busy and they're working, and you don't often sit down for a meaningful conversation. And that's all we had for several years, just time for meaningful conversation. So we would talk about, I have a grown daughter and grandchildren. He's got several children and lots of grandchildren. So that's, in the early days, we talked about food and, how it was for growing up. And because his dad was in the military, they were stationed overseas for a while. So we talk about what that was like and the cool places he visited and, what his family was like versus what my family was like. And now, especially people our age, it's like, it's all about the grandkids and, what they're doing and who's doing what. And, so for the most part, the discussions we have are a lot like a lot of other married people. And, we have an old house in California. So, okay, well, this tree fell down, this part of the roof is leaking. So what do I do? And, so a lot of our conversations are very normal, but it's just in a crappy setting. So,
yeah. So he takes part of like your life, of your home, of everything, even though he doesn't see a way that he's going to be able to, I guess, benefit from it.
The house in California is the house he grew up in. So he's very familiar with the house, and it's over 100 years old. So I'm basically, taking care of the house and holding down the fort while he's in prison. And we had always hoped that he would get out. And there are things in California's legislature that are inching towards, they are starting to look at older guys in prison, older people in prison, and do they have health issues? And maybe we should just let them out because they've already done 20 or 30 years and they're no longer a threat to society. And he's in there for something he didn't do. That's another part of the story. But regardless of that, age and health, it's like these people are a huge burden on California's state resources. They're costing the state a lot of money. And so I'm sure taxpayers wouldn't mind terribly to let some of them out. And they are starting to do that. There have been some laws passed that are enabling older inmates, especially with health problems. There's a couple different bills or laws that went into effect that are allowing that. They just aren't allowing it for life without parole people. So, but there are certain things that might nudge that along and make that possible, or make it possible so that you can reduce your sentence to now you're eligible for parole. So there's a few things happening, but again, it's been almost 40 years and I'd love to see that day. I'm not counting on it, but we still have the house and it still leaks every now and then. And, sometimes the sewer backs up and, the squirrels get in here. It's like, it's just like anybody else's house. You have trees that are old and falling down and, So
what do you do to make sure your relationship still stays intact, even though you don't get to see him every day?
We have been writing to each other almost every day for over 20 years. So that helps a lot. And even if it's just chit chat, because, and he's very well educated and he knows a lot about history. So just for example, what keeps his mind active is somewhere in every letter is like, okay, on this day in history. And then he just gives me 2 or 3 paragraphs of stuff that's happened, through the ages. And I like that, unless it's like sometimes I'm looking for an answer on an issue we're discussing. And it's like, okay, get past the history, tell me the important stuff. But that helps him keep his mind active. So that's a good thing. And then we're chit-chatting and it's like, okay, the grandkids did this, or so-and-so friend in here did this, or the veterans group is meeting. And he's always had a job. So it's not like he's sitting around all day watching TV like a lot of people think, and he doesn't do drugs. So he's not sitting around stoned and watching TV. And a lot of people, that's what their image of, an inmate is. And yes, there are a lot of drugs in the prison, and there are a lot of people who don't have a job. But anyway, he has a job. He's well educated. He teaches other inmates. He runs veterans groups. He's always been a mentor. So we share that stuff. And I'm friends with a couple of his friends. So, it's like, well, how's so-and-so and how's so-and-so? And he's invested and interested in my side of the family. What are your sisters and brother? What are they all doing? How are, he names off the grandkids. So it's just, we're keeping the conversation going. And, it's like my day is often pretty boring. Well, I worked all day on my client stuff and I went to the grocery store, or I took a walk, or,
right.
It's not that exciting. But he has said in the past, it's like, you see all these tough biker guys that are in prison, and what are they talking about? Their grandkids and their potty training and who's riding a bike. And so it's pretty normal. It's like, and especially when you get to, 50s and 60s, you're old for prison. So, you're not talking about who you're going to go beat up or do this or that, or, it's just life, you're just old and life goes on and your priorities change. So And often,
Okay. Sounds interesting.
and often, he'll say, well, tonight's a beautiful night. I wish we could be at this restaurant, or I wish we could be taking a drive, or I wish we could go. This would be a great day for a picnic in the Marin Headlands, or, I'd love for us to go dancing at the top of the whatever restaurant he loves. And, so we try to bring the date aspect into it. And in August, we had a family visit, and that's right after our anniversary and my birthday. So he really tries hard. When we got married, our wedding cake was 2 Hostess cupcakes shoved together. So that was our cake, because you can't bring a wedding cake into the prison. So a couple years ago, when I turned 65, he managed to get some Hostess cupcakes, for my birthday cake. And man, we had ordered ice cream. We were also on a family visit then. So so he tried to make it really special. So that was nice. And this year in August, when I was there, he had managed again to get some cupcakes. And this isn't always easy, because you have to make sure you can go to the canteen on time to get whatever snacks you want to buy. Anyway, he managed, and he put it together. So he surprised me with our cupcakes. So that was lovely. And I mean, just today, he's been waiting for a year to send me this thing. He builds, we're very much into fairies and that whole realm of life. And he builds like little houses and rooms for the fairies to live in. And they're beautiful. And he built me one last year, and I just got it today. He goes, I'm trying to get this sent out to you. And all these are like delayed Christmas presents from 2020. And I finally just got it. And it's like, and he goes, and I hope when you get it, it's not broken up. And there was only a couple little things that were broken off of it. But, so he really tries to show me that he cares, and shows me that he's thinking of me. And, we send cards, and not just always boring. I mean, the letters are not always boring, but, they're usually based on day-to-day life. But, we try to find each other nice cards, or he's got friends and kids that will send him lovely cards to send me. And when I'm out shopping or at the post office, I'll buy fun cards, because you got to keep the juice alive.
Yeah.
All the juice does not reside in the bedroom. So, there's got to be a lot more to your relationship than good sex. And hopefully there's good sex. But, and I know if I'm speaking to 20 and 30-year-olds, that's probably all that's on your mind. I don't know. It's been a long time since I was 20 or 30. So, and by then I'd already been divorced a couple times.
When you were earlier, before you got married to him. Let's go back to your history of marriages and how that started. What happened there?
When I first started getting married, I'll just set the stage. I was a Mormon. And when you're a Mormon, you are taught to, find Mr. Right, get married, have a bunch of kids, live happily ever after. And I'm also a product of the 50s. I'm older than you, way older. You're probably way younger. I don't know how old you are. You look lovely and you're young. And so I could be your mother. I don't know. I could be your grandmother. My oldest grandchild is 19. But anyway, growing up in the 50s too, you had the Leave It to Beaver, the June Cleaver, the Donna Ray, the wholesome little family picture with the picket white fence, and the mom stays at home. That's all I ever wanted. I never thought, okay, yes, I went to college for 2 years. I thought, okay, I'll get a degree, which I didn't get right away. But I really want to just get married and start having babies. Okay. And that's okay. So that was partly because I was a Mormon, and partly because I grew up in the 50s. But okay, that never panned out. I did get married, I think at like 20, or I was just about 20 the first time I got married. And it turns out we only got married because his family was pressuring him to get married. And I was a home economics major. So good wife material, right?
But did you like him?
I did like him, but we met at a dance. I think pretty much most of the Mormons I married, we met at dances. It's like, because I was at school, but even when I was just a single Mormon, woman, I was off to dances and stuff because I love to dance. But I did like him, and we got along, but we didn't talk. The problem with all these other marriages is like the courtships were too short. So, it really take time to get to know the other person before you get married. It would be a good thing. And as a Mormon, you're not supposed to live with the people before you get married, let alone have sex. So, you've got all these hormones raging, and you can't live together. And we weren't talking about the important stuff. Well, how are we going to manage the money? Who's going to manage the money? What kind of food do you like? I mean, I knew he liked pecan pie, so I learned to make pecan pie, but we didn't discuss the important stuff. And I was more so, okay, cool. I'm going to have this great wedding. I'm going to make this beautiful wedding dress. And what's our reception going to be like? Okay, well, my first red flag should have been when the top tier of the cake fell over during the reception. And then we went on our honeymoon and he got an allergy attack and we were camping and then we had to go home. It's like, well, crap, if this is what life's going to be like, it's yuck. And then, and at 20, I was probably the thinnest I've ever been in my life. And I wasn't thin enough for him. He was a photography major and constantly photographing models who were probably stick thin. And, there's nothing wrong with that, but I've never been stick thin. And again, at 20, I was really thin, but I wasn't thin enough for him. And it just nagged on me. And
okay. So then at what point did you get divorced? What point did you get married? Like, I really want to get to what was the change between those previous marriages to your marriage now? So what happened? What happened after that?
Or are we going to go through the other marriages?
I want to hear a little bit about them.
Okay.
We don't have that much time to go into depth of all of them.
Okay. So, I mean, most of these marriages lasted a year. One lasted 5 years because it took 2 years to get a divorce. But, there was abuse in pretty much all these marriages, some type of abuse, either emotional or physical. And again, with the Mormon men, they're taught that they're the head of a household. And, most of them took that to the extreme. Was like, well, you will do what I say, no matter what I say. So again, a thing to realize, whether you're religious or not, is, the man does not rule the wife. You're supposed to be equal partners. And that is a good takeaway. And even my husband now, he was like, and it's not like he's trying to rule me, but I do have to, it's like I have found my voice and I will now remind him if I feel the need. It's like, we're supposed to be equal. It's not always going to be what you want. It's like, we got to talk about it, and it's an equal partnership. That is what marriage is supposed to be, an equal partnership. And there's going to be compromise, and the man is not always in charge. And I've learned that I am, it's like, I've learned the hard, it's like, I'm not somebody's pet and I'm not their property.
Right.
And, especially I think in the people that I married, because I clearly made poor choices. They thought they were in charge. I'm just curious,
I get it that you're a Mormon and you're religious and you have
to I'm not a Mormon anymore. I left the church.
You were. Okay. Sorry, that wasn't clear. You were. But if, let's say, not just out of trying to understand here, I'm not judging you in any which way. But if it happened 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, wasn't it at a certain point you're maybe I have to get to know this person better before I just marry them, have a longer just relationship beforehand?
That would have been wise. Yes. And part of the thing, and when I wrote my book, it's and my daughter was I believe so strongly in the concept of true love and happy marriage. And after marriage number 2, and he died, but I had a young daughter and I just wanted a family for her. So, it started out where, they were getting along and it looked like it could be a happy family. And the other problem was just I kind of assumed, I assumed that, well, if we were both Mormons, we were both on the same spiritual path, and, we both want this happy family. Well, then, so you court a while and it looks like that's all going along fine. And along those, you seem like you're on the same page, and you get married and all of a sudden you're not on the same page. And, they, for me, it was like they put on a good show. But then once we got married, it's like, oh, you don't really value me as a great person, or, you still see yourself as better than me. It's like, well, you have a labor intensive job and I'm a bookkeeper, so I don't have a real job. and okay, you just hit me and you just hit my daughter and you keep hitting my daughter. It's like, where's where's that's finally I learned not to put up with things, and it took me less and less time to put up with things. And especially when, okay, no, it's all your fault. We're not going to therapy, or I'm not going to therapy with you. So I've probably gone off on a tangent, but I learned how to stand up for myself. And again, it's part of being the equal partnership. You have to stand up for yourself. And the other thing is you have to be happy with yourself. So no matter if that person's a great person, if you're not feeling good about yourself, and if you're not taking care of yourself, and you shouldn't, I had this pattern of codependency and enabling people. And I, had to learn how to get out of that pattern. I don't always have to put my husband or my children. Well, I have one child, but I don't have to put all these other people first. I'm a big caregiver, but I don't have to put all these other people first. So, because it affected my health and obviously my self-esteem. Yeah, so I'm in a much better place now. And, a lot of my friends see that. And my husband's, I've changed over the last year. COVID has really helped me.
So hold on, your change happened before your current marriage or during your current marriage?
It's
obviously it's life and it's constantly changing, but the big breakthrough. I
think a lot of it happened. Some of it happened before the current marriage, because with him, again, we started talking, and it was so fun to have somebody intellectual to talk to and talk about all kinds of subjects. And we truly enjoy each other's company. We just, love talking to each other. And yes, if we had the opportunity to go out to dinner or dancing or drive, that would be great. But that's not in the stars at the moment. So I would say that, but again, it's like I went from being a Mormon, and all of a sudden I started spending more time with him, and I left the church. I didn't need to be a Mormon. I just didn't see the need to be a Mormon anymore. And by the time I was in my 40s, I don't even need to be married anymore. It's like, okay, it's like I was in my 40s. It's like it didn't look like, I didn't care if we got married, really. We got married more out of convenience, because it's better for an inmate to have a spouse, just politically. And in case something happens to them, the prison talks to you better if you're a spouse. I have more clout as a spouse. So I didn't care. At that point, it's like marriage wasn't foremost on my mind. And that's probably what changed. That probably helped the relationship, because I didn't make being married the most important thing in my life. And I was getting to the age where it's like, okay, more kids are not going to happen. And, it's not like we were getting married right away and we could start having kids. So that was, so I didn't, and my daughter was already grown, so I didn't need to find this perfect little family for her to have a perfect little family and a decent father all of a sudden, Right. So my priorities changed, and then I could, explore new intellectual realms and new paths. And, I'm into a lot more different fun stuff than when I was, it's like I was a bookkeeper. I'm still a bookkeeper. It's like, and a lot of time spent with church stuff and serving other people and, different things. And so my priorities changed, and that's probably the thing. Now with COVID, and before COVID started, I decided to write a book, which I wrote. And then the process of that helped me realize even stronger, what I learned from each of those bad marriages, and then how I could apply that to improving myself, so that I show up as a more whole person in my marriage now.
Right. So if you had to say, what were the top 2 things that you had to do, really work on yourself to make the marriage of what it is today?
I take the time to have self-care. And maybe this sounds selfish to some people. It's like, I have a monthly massage. I have a retreat with other female witches when it's not COVID. It's like I will spend time taking classes that I wouldn't have taken time for. I do things to improve myself, which is great. Yesterday, I took the whole afternoon off when I should have been working, but because I work all the time. So it was more like, Joanne, you have to take care of yourself, and then you can show up as get more sleep, and so, and again, feeling more free to express my opinions and really stand in my truth and share what I believe even to my wonderful husband, who has very strong opinions about how life should be and how things should go in our life. And, God, bless him, but my opinions are not always his opinions, so, but so communication and standing up for myself and taking care of myself. Those are probably the two biggest things, because in my past, I wasn't communicating, even though I knew it was important, I wasn't communicating. And especially when you just want to go along to keep the peace, that's another story. And I've learned that doesn't work for me anymore.
And did you do that through therapy, through reading books, through what sort of?
I have. Yes, I have. Well, I wouldn't say I've been in and out of therapy a lot. I have since COVID. I have hooked up with a therapist who has been great. A lot of it was writing my book. I processed a lot of my own crap, and looked at, okay, why did I get married so much? Okay, I have to admit it was this. And what did that do to my daughter?
Right.
And she and I have never been estranged through, I put her through she went through a lot of hell having some bad stepfathers. And now we're at a place where we're talking about that. And she's thrilled that I wrote this book and put myself out there and got so vulnerable. But, there's a lot of healing going on, which was nice. So that's really helped. I mean, that's really helped. And, I share all that with my husband, and, like I told you, my life's an open book. I just gave a talk about all this stuff at something called a wisdom conference last weekend. And I just put it all out on the line because, I know other people out there. Oh, I do remember a book I just read, but I know there's other women out there who are stuck in bad marriages, or, who could use a little hope. And so they can, it's like, it's not all gloom and doom, and life can get better. I did read, but this has been since COVID. I read a book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed. And I don't know if you've heard of that. It seemed to have been all the rage. Then my daughter and her friends were all reading it. And then I read it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm underlying, this is me. This is me. Yeah. And her lifestyle is different than mine. And I didn't have 3 kids, and I didn't have a husband who cheated on me a million times, but I had other kinds of abuse, and I was stuck in, more marriages than she was, but she's in a beautiful, loving relationship now, and they make the co-parenting work. But her book was a lot about, how you look at yourself and how you treat yourself. And, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay for both girls and boys to learn these cool principles. And it's like, if people haven't read that book, everybody rush and go read that book.
Go get it. Yeah. Okay. So for our final question, how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using the words love, connection, or communication?
Oh, you took out one of my words.
So that means I did a good job asking the question.
I know. I listened to your other podcast. I go, she's going to ask that question.
I know. And then I change it up for people based on what they tell me. I did hear enough
episodes. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Tell me without saying what words. You said love,
connection, and communication.
Okay, so I'll use another word that you use with this other guy. I have discovered that playfulness is a good part, because even, my husband and I are in our late 60s. We still have a good sense of humor. And, I tease him, but he doesn't necessarily like that. But he's playful. Like I said, he made a point to go get me my Hostess cupcake for my birthday, and doing the unexpected for the other person. It's like, he'll cook for me, and I don't expect him to do that. I didn't ask him to do that. So that's good. And trust is very important. So.
Oh yeah. I think that was taken out from a different one.
Yes, you did.
And you got it. You got it.
I took notes from that one show I listened to, and I was like, so I'm going to use it, because trust is important. But again, spontaneity and playfulness, don't lose the spark. Take your person out on a date. Even if you're in COVID and you don't feel comfortable going outside, have a date at home.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Joanne. This was
Thank
amazing.
you.
I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing with us your story.
You are so welcome. You take care.
That's all for this episode of the Life Picks University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.